Once upon a time in a bustling city where wealth was often measured by the height of skyscrapers and the shine of expensive cars, there lived a man who was both admired and envied, a millionaire named Alexander Grant, a powerful businessman who had built his empire from the ground up, and while people often thought he had everything anyone could possibly dream of, private jets, mansions, fleets of luxury cars, and influence that reached the highest levels of society, there was one thing that left him restless at night and gave him a loneliness money could never erase, and that was his little daughter Emily, a fragile girl of just 7 years old who had lost her mother in a tragic accident when she was still a baby, a girl who had inherited not just her mother's bright eyes but also her delicate heart, for Emily was not like other children. She had grown up surrounded by nannies, caretakers, and maids, yet none of them had lasted long in the Grant mansion. Because Emily was known across the staff as a child who was impossible to handle, not out of malice, but out of a deep, wounded grief that had grown inside her young soul, a grief she expressed through tantrums, silence, stubbornness, and a sharp distrust of anyone who tried to get close to her, for in her little heart, she believed that everyone eventually left, everyone betrayed her trust, and everyone abandoned her the way fate had taken her mother, and so one by one, every maid who entered the mansion left after only a few days, unable to handle the tears, the screams, or the heartbreaking silence that filled Emily's world, and Alexander, despite his powerful presence in the boardroom, found himself powerless at home, helpless in front of the one person he loved more than life itself, his daughter who barely spoke to him, who avoided his touch, and who seemed to live inside an invisible cage that no amount of wealth could open, and so the mansion became a place of rotating faces. Countless maids hired and fired, each promising they could manage, each failing, until one crisp autumn morning, a woman named Clara walked through the towering iron gates of the Grant estate, a woman who was nothing like the others, for Clara did not arrive in expensive clothes or polished shoes. She came with worn hands, a humble dress, and eyes that carried both sorrow and warmth. She was not desperate for a job out of greed, but out of necessity, for Clara too had a story hidden in her past, a story of loss and perseverance. She had once been a mother herself, but tragedy had stolen her child, and though her pain never faded, it had given her an understanding of children's hearts that no textbook or training could provide. So when she entered the mansion and was met with Emily's cold glare, when she saw the child's arms crossed and her lips pressed in defiance, Clara did not flinch the way others had. She simply knelt down to the child's level and whispered softly, "I won't force you to like me, but I will stay as long as you need," words that stunned not only Emily but also Alexander, who stood watching from a distance, because for the first time, someone had not tried to bribe Emily with toys or sweets, someone had simply offered patience, and over the next days, Clara's presence began to shift the air inside the mansion, where once there had been tension and shouting, now there were moments of quiet observation. Clara never pushed Emily to speak, never demanded her affection, she simply remained near, reading stories out loud even when Emily turned her back, leaving small sketches of animals on the child's desk, cooking meals with extra care though she knew Emily would barely touch them, and slowly, like a rosebud hesitating to bloom, Emily began to test Clara, first by ignoring her less, then by leaving her doll near Clara as if to see whether the woman would care for it. Then one night when thunder roared and lightning flashed across the sky, Emily ran out of her room, her small frame trembling, and without thinking, she buried her face into Clara's apron, seeking comfort, and Clara, with tears filling her eyes, embraced the little girl as if she were her own, whispering promises of safety, and in that moment something unthinkable began. The impossible bond between the millionaire's untouchable daughter and the maid who carried her own broken past, and though Alexander saw the change from afar, he dared not interfere, afraid to break the fragile trust forming between them. But what he did not know was that Clara's presence in their lives would soon bring challenges greater than tantrums or silence, for not everyone wanted her to stay, and not everyone welcomed the healing she was bringing, and as the days turned into weeks, secrets buried in the Grant mansion began to stir, secrets that would test loyalty, love, and courage in ways none of them could have ever imagined. And dear viewer, this is only the beginning of a journey that will shake hearts and inspire faith. So if you want to know how Clara managed to do the impossible, how she stood against storms greater than anyone expected, and how a child who trusted no one finally opened her heart, then make sure you don't miss what comes next, and subscribe now so you are the first to witness the continuation of this powerful story.